Hi, this is Jack Miller with T360. Welcome back to another Fireside Friday chat. We are going to have a great time today with our guest. But before that, I will introduce my co-host today, which is Kelly White, our Chief Operating Officer at T360. So Kelly, welcome.
Hi.
And Kelly, do you want to introduce Wendy?
No, you go for it.
Okay. So Wendy Papasan is the leader of it's the Wendy Papasan Real Estate Group. Is that's correct?
It's a Papasan Properties Group. Yeah.
Property. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we've known each other a long time. And
like 20 years almost.
20 years. And you've just built an empire that we're going to get to talk about today. And it's so much fun because you have your own followership now. You're doing podcasts. You're doing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yep. So, living the dream.
Yeah, we're
so
just
awesome.
super excited for it. So before we jump into that, how's your family? You know, how's your staff? Like, how have you been handling the 2020, all this crazy lockdown stuff? What's it been like? What is your life like?
Well, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Chris. It's great to be here. So I appreciate you having me. And 2020, I think, has been pretty typical, like everybody else. I'm homeschooling my daughter, who's 15 now. And so there's that. So those of you that are listening that are homeschooling your kids, I feel you. I've got one kid who's going to school every day and then one that's home. I had my stepmom who's in a mental health facility in northern Minnesota. She got COVID earlier this year. It kind of spread throughout her facility. Thankfully, she survived, which is awesome. And generally just grateful for the small things. You know, our real estate team's doing great, grateful to have a job, grateful for my health, and just grateful to be here. So.
Well, that's fantastic. And as a homeschooler in our family, we have two at home right now. And I feel you.
Yeah.
It's some real work.
It ain't easy. Yeah. Well, plus I'm terrible at it. So there's that.
It's like Dumb and Dumber over here with the parents.
Yeah. Well, I'm not particularly wired for patience or nurturing or any of that. And I'm not that great of a teacher or a trainer. So my daughter is, thankfully she's a self-starter. So there's that.
Yeah. We do the best with the gifts that we have.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. That's terrific.
Well, Wendy, you know, there's so many ways we could go with this. I've been really excited about having you on because I have so many questions that are in my mind that I'd love to know what you're doing. I know you have a podcast. I know you're doing some, at least I think it's new, or it might be new to me, some new planning around the one thing, which I think is really cool. But we know a little bit about your story, but we'd love for you to share, how did you get into real estate, and tell us a little bit about starting and why you chose a team and that kind of a thing.
Sure. So, I got into real estate. Well, so my husband's been in real estate for about 20 years. As you know, he started working with you guys way back when Keller Williams International was just had about 6,000 agents. And then about 10 years after that, about 5 years after that, I quit my job and, was a stay-at-home mom for many years. And during that time, Jay and Gary Keller wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Oh, and right. that's when I got into real estate investing. So that's actually how I got started in real estate. I was the landlord. I was the one, we did some flip properties. We, we had a little subdivision that we worked on in Travis Heights. We did some other things. And then, so when my son started kindergarten in 2009, which arguably was probably the worst time to get into real estate in Austin.
That's right.
I decided that I wanted to maybe save money on investment properties. So I got my real estate license. And and then in my first 5 years by the time I was in real estate for 5 years, I was making $1 million in commission checks. So the rest is history.
That's incredible. I did not know that is how you got your start. So I learned something new. And so at what point did you decide that you were going to build a team, and maybe tell us about the formation of that?
Sure. Well, so the gift that I got when I started was I was the mom of 2 young kids that were 3 and 5. And that was my main priority. Also, obviously, I was a wife of a busy executive.
Right.
And so I really wanted to make sure that that remained my number one priority. And the gift that I got, of course, was I live with someone who is encouraging me to leverage right away.
Right.
And so I actually started building a team right away. I hired a kind of a part-time transaction coordinator immediately. If you ask me to do a contract to close for a property, there's no way I could do it.
Yeah.
And that's really where it started. And then by the time I was my goal that first year was really small. It was to make $15,000. Which when I look back on it, I'm like, really, Wendy, 15,000?
That was your goal.
But for me, what that represented was I thought I could buy one rental property with that.
Wow.
And remember, we'd just been living on Jay's salary. And that was kind of the idea, was that would be sort of my side hustle.
Oh, wow.
And so that first year I made $85,000, which was about twice as much as I'd ever made before.
That's amazing.
And my first full year in real estate, I sold 18 houses. And the next year I sold 23. And then I got a full-time assistant. I sold 59 the next year, and I sold 89, and I sold 121.
That's amazing.
And and then at our peak, we've sold about over 300 homes, which for us is about 2.7 million in commission checks.
Wow. Congratulations.
That's incredible. And such a good thing to start with some help so that you didn't get, because I mean, how many agents do we talk to that struggle because they're unwilling to invest in handing off some of those $20 an hour tasks or $15 an hour tasks?
Yeah. Well, the gift that I got is that, we just decided that we were going to continue to live on one salary. And what I see a lot of agents do is they actually ramp up their lifestyle as they make more money. And that's the problem, because then you can never invest any money into your business. And if you're not going to invest any money into your business, you're never going to grow. So you guys know, you help people do all this all the time. Success doesn't look like this. It's kind of a stair step. You're going along, you have to spend a lot of money. You have to hire a new person. Probably. You probably have to step back and train that person. And then you get to go to the next level the next year.
And I love that you bring up the hiring and the development of people. That was one thing I was curious about. What I do is hiring and executive placement now, but I've always gravitated towards hiring and recruiting. And I know one of my friends is on your team, Chris Hall, and he has developed, and he's really great. I mean, he's a good prospector. He's very regular and consistent about reaching out to me, which I think is great. But tell us about your journey in terms of finding the right talent and what you've gone through in terms of refining all of that. I'm sure that's what a lot of people want to know, because for some of us, that's just the hardest part of leveraging ourselves.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing. Because I didn't have a background in HR when I started. My background was in marketing. So I didn't know the first flip about hiring anyone or anything. The great thing about Keller Williams is they do teach you how to do that. Keller Williams teaches you how to build a business. And there's a great class. It's called Career Visioning. And that helps you to go to actually have a process to hire someone. Because what most people do is they feel extreme pain. And they look around in their world and they say, you can help with that pain. And 30 minutes later, that person's on the payroll.
True.
And we don't do that. We have a seven-step hiring process for hiring great people. And because a bad hire, as you know, Kelly and Jack, as you've hired many people, a bad hire can cost you millions and millions of dollars and your reputation, which is priceless.
Absolutely. Because people don't think about all of the soft costs that goes along also with a bad hire. And so would you mind sharing just like, what are some of the 7 steps and where do you think people get mostly tripped up, other than the obvious, which is it's so hard to just follow the process because, you mentioned earlier, you're impatient and so am I. And so you just want to not do the thing. But so what do you do to keep yourself honest about all that? Yeah. You're like, please just find someone for me.
Yeah. Well, so the first step is really understanding that you want to hire someone who can help you with operations. A lot of a lot of the mistakes that salespeople make is they think they need someone to be their showing assistant or be a buyer agent on their team, but really what they need is help with their systems. I tell people that the core of my team is operations and systems. I love my salespeople. I love Chris Hall. If you're watching, love you.
He's so
However,
awesome.
if all my salespeople leave, it's okay because I have a wheel that goes round and round and round and round and round every single month. And that brings in leads and that closes deals. And of course, the agents are important, but it's really those systems that are important. And what I hear agents say is, oh, well, I have to get my systems in order to hire my first assistant. And I look at them and I'm like, listen, you suck at systems. It's never going to happen. So you need to hire someone who's good at systems. Like, believe it or not, there's people that wake up every day and they are dying to systematize you, right? You don't hire someone that you like. That's the
Yes.
other problem too, is that people find someone, oh, you're great. They don't have any criteria. You're looking for somebody who's going to compliment you and be good at systems. And that's really the first thing that you want to do. And then you want to have a process to make sure that they actually are good at systems. So whatever that looks like for you is, and hopefully it's multi-step. So in a 30-minute interview, anybody can say anything and you will believe them. But over the course of 5 or 6 interviews, if you've talked to them 7 hours, they will start to reveal themselves. They'll start to trust you and you'll start to see who they really are.
That is so true.
You have some hiring disciples over here that are nodding their head.
We're like, yes.
It's
You
hard.
you
Yeah,
have-
it's hard.
wrong, and it's something where you just time proves out whether that person will work or not, and it's hard to do that.
It's hard.
Yeah, especially the behavioral profile of people that become leadership in this industry or become successful. We're just pedal to the metal all the time. We don't want to take that time because it's expensive. Yeah. It's expensive to spend that much time.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not fun. It's boring. And then you have to train them, which is even more boring.
Yeah.
Which is even harder, right?
All you want to do is, what they call seagull management. You just swoop in, dump on your person and then take off. Yes. And you can't do that either because that's a recipe for somebody leaving you over and over again.
For sure. Sure.
That's so true.
Well, I've seen some of the results of your team because we've been here in Austin, and I think I've even seen somewhere you had shared the workflow of like how you do your processes and things like that. So it's remarkable how infrequently you see that in this industry where it's like you go, well, what's your process? And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, do you have a chart or a diagram? Anything and then
well, especially since real estate is extremely complicated.
It is.
It's many steps. There's sometimes up to 25 people involved in any one particular deal. It's litigious, right? It sort of kills me. I'm so glad I'm not a brokerage because who would want all those new agents? I mean, that terrifies me. The thought of having a brokerage and all those new agents who don't know anything or understand anything out there being a fiduciary for someone's largest asset. I mean, yikes.
Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility. Well, what do you, what's your goal with the team? What are you trying to, do you have some things you're trying to accomplish now? I mean, you've had it running up, going very successfully for a while. What's the vision for it going forward? I know you've opened in some other markets, and tell us a little bit about that and kind of where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, well, great question. So I guess there's 2 answers to that. One is just for me personally. So I'm not really doing much in terms of sales anymore. Only about 10% of the sales are really coming from me. And for a couple of years, I wasn't doing any sales, but I just kind of jumped back in because I think it's just important to be involved and kind of know what's going on in the market. So for me personally, a lot of my time isn't really spent on the real estate business. I was able to open a secondary business called Papasan Homes, which is a home repair and remodeling business. It's kind of like a division of our real estate team. And then I've got a side hustle, which is, we call it the $5 Network, which amplifies the lives of voices of women in business.
Mm.
And then I've got my podcast, and then I do tons of charitable work, which is where my heart is. So we've raised about $1 million for kids with cancer over the last, 7 years. And then I'm chairman of the board for Keller Williams Kids Can, which is one of Gary Keller's charities that helps young adults think bigger and kind of find and fund their mission. So that's like a long-winded answer. But what the real estate team has allowed me to do, it's allowed me to turn my real estate career into an asset, right? That pays me without me having to spend a lot of time on it. And that allows me to kind of do the things that I love. And so that's me purpose, like that's me personally. And then as far as the team goes, really just continue to grow our hub in Austin. Again, getting that like systematic lead gen down, and then really thinking about expansion. So we have a couple teams, all over Texas, and then one in Minneapolis. And I'm just kind of seeing where that goes. We've hired a director of expansion to help us with some of that and really get that sort of predictable lead generation up and running in other places, which is the tricky part of expanding.
Wow, that's impressive. And I love just the tie-in to being able to focus on your kind of personal passion projects and mission, and that's something where I see a lot of people that work really hard, but they're not sure why they're doing it.
Yeah, right.
And I think you're at great risk of burnout with that, or just becoming dissatisfied with your life. You're just like, what am I doing every day?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, and that's a nice thing about growing a business is you do get to choose. I tell people, hey, think about your real estate career as a business, and then you get to choose what you get to do every day. I like kind of back to that topic of leverage. I tell people, tape a piece of paper to your desk, and this is really good for anyone wherever they're at, and write my not to do list on it.
Oh yeah.
And then every time in real estate, you're out putting a sign in the yard, or you're entering something in the database where you're like, I hate to do this. You write it down. And then when you have your piece of paper filled up, you have your first assistant's job description. And you get to do that over and over and over again until you're doing the 20% of the 20%. And then you're just running towards what you love every day. And that's where true success lies.
That's such great.
My question with that though is, what if you know that there are things that are going to hold you back from growing and to fulfill your vision, but you're doing them anyway because you like to do them, but you know that you really shouldn't be doing them. Do you have any advice on that?
Ooh,
do you know what I'm saying? So
that's tough. Yeah, no, for sure. I for sure do some of those.
But I guess maybe it's okay as long as you're like balancing out. Like, I know that this probably isn't the best thing for me to be doing right now, but I at least know I'm doing it. So then I balance it out in some other way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to answer it. I think at the end of the day, it's okay to spend time doing things that you love during the day. We don't have to be all 100% like focused on productivity all the time after a certain point. I mean, and some people might have a different opinion than that, but I mean, I'm here to live my best life, whatever that looks like.
Me too. And I'm curious if you would share with us sort of then what your planning process is, because, you've listed such a high level performer in a variety of areas. So your business, the Kids Can, which is amazing, your Papasan homes, your Five Dolls network, which I was unaware of. And then I'm very familiar with your podcast. It's really amazing. So how do you plan all of this to be able to do all of those things in a way where I know you're still living the life that you want and you're homeschooling your kids right now and all that? And so tell us about that.
Sure. Well, to be clear, I'm doing a terrible job at homeschooling. So
but
there's
you're still
that.
Doing it,
so. Well, first of all, I have a lot of help. People ask me like, how do you do it all? I do not do it all.
Yeah.
I do not do it all. I leverage out a lot of it. I leverage out the things that I don't want to do. So, and I do have a good system, which is, you probably know it's endemic to Keller Williams. I sit down every Sunday in the afternoon, and I pull out what I call my 411, which is a one-page sheet. It has my goals for the year, my goals for the month, and then I write down my goals for the week. And I spend probably about an hour doing that, looking at my calendar, time blocking the things that are the most important. So if I have to do, a certain amount of writing or of this or whatever, I put all that in my calendar. And then every single day I sit down and I put my, top, usually it's never more than 3 priorities. I write my schedule out because a lot of, I'm like you guys, probably my day's often scheduled.
Yeah.
But my top 3 priorities, and then just, and then I also have that personal stuff on there too, because, we got a lot of personal stuff going on. I, manage all of our investment properties. I'm super interested in wealth building and it's just, success looks different than people think it does. It's just chipping away a little bit every day, a little bit every day, a little bit every day. And I think some people think like success is just like blowing it up, right? And that's not really what it is. It's just repeatable activities and a focused effort, a little bit every day. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, whoa,
Wow.
who would have thought,
Yeah. That's such great advice.
Yeah, I remember working with Gary early on, and he said, "Well, he says I'm not successful. I just didn't quit. I just, I just kept doing the same things. It wasn't some magical thing that happened. It's like I just didn't give up, and you just keep doing it, and then
well, and I feel like quitting a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's just continuing to go and do your consistent systematic action. Yeah. I'm so grateful for that. The framework of time blocking at such a young age and really learning the skill of doing that it's incredibly
It's kind
powerful.
of everything. It is everything, Yeah, it's just
control your time is control your focus.
I think I remember, you might know the saying, but I remember Gary Keller saying, the freedom is in the planning. People think that the freedom is not having a schedule and not planning, but really the freedom is in the planning and scheduling so that you have the ability to have the life that you want. So when you do your annual planning, what framework do you use? Do you put all your personal things in first, or, how do you do that? Because there's different approaches that you could do. And I'm so curious about it.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that Jay and I have done together is we always do a couples goal setting retreat. And this is something, so this is something that I actually started probably, my daughter's 15. So probably like 14 years ago. Our kids are really close in age. They're 15 months apart. And so our kids were probably 1 and 2. And I said, Jay, hey, I want to take some time away and talk and answer all these questions and everything. And I think Jay thought that he was going to get in trouble or we were going to get a divorce or something because he was like really scared for the weekend.
The scariest word.
We need to talk.
Scariest words ever. It's like
guys go,
Yeah. So that's where that started. And actually you can go to theonething.com and search couples goal setting and retreat. And you can get our free download. It's called the Kick-Ass Guide to Setting Goals as a Couple or something like that.
I saw that. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And then the last few years we've actually, because we gave that out so many times over the years. And then there was such a demand for it. We said, why don't we do a facilitated couples goal setting and retreat? So the first year we had about 100 couples here in Austin. And then the next year we had about 200. And then this year we're doing it virtual. We're doing 2 weekends in a row, actually, this weekend and next week. We got over 1,000 couples that are coming. So
wow,
it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
That's amazing. I know. I saw that. I didn't have awareness about it until recently. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, I'm such a geek about planning. And I thought this is such a cool way to do that.
Well, it's great for married couples. Great if you're single. Great if you're you have a team member. I've done usually Jay's up speaking, so I don't get to actually, we do our couples retreat, at a different time. And it's just so hard when you have a life and family and children and all that, just to take 2 days away, just the two of you, and say, hey, let's get on the same page. And a lot of times, especially in real estate, you've got one partner, it's probably true for you guys, who's a goal setter. And then another partner who's like, I don't know about that. That doesn't sound that good. And so I tell people to sell the benefits. It's like, okay, we're going to have a weekend away, just the two of us. It's going to be very romantic. And then,
And then
you
spring it
kind of
on them.
you
We're gonna
sneak the
plan.
goal setting in there. Yeah.
You
So
get to have really great food. It's going to be a great.
exactly. Massage. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Again, I feel all of those things that you were saying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I want to switch gears here because we don't have this month. We're getting to talk to people that are running teams that are actually in production or do some production close to that. And a lot of our focus in these has been talking to leaders, and there's an organization under them, there's an organization under them, and then there's some salespeople, right? So, or there's some people that are actually in the market. So I wanted to have a little conversation with you about what the market's been like during the year, and like what is your team experienced, and what are some of the things that you've learned from it. And I mean, Kelly and I both live here in Austin, so we have all kinds of perspective on it.
Yeah.
We're not in it the way that you guys are in it. So I'm curious, what's it been like since March, and what does it feel like in production right now for your team?
Yeah, well, it's been crazy. Because in Austin, if you remember, we went on complete lockdown and we weren't allowed to do anything in real estate for a couple of weeks. And that's really scary as a leader, because you're thinking, gosh, these are people that I love, that are my business family, and they have families that they have to provide for. And so that was really scary. But luckily, I wasn't worried about that, because I have a really nice, nest egg of savings, so that if anything happens, we can survive for a long time. But yeah, it was a lot of pivoting, a lot of shifting, a lot of long days at the beginning, 14, 16 hours, just waking up early and trying to figure out how to do everything. Virtual showings, virtual consultations, virtual open houses, trying to make things safe for people. As a leader, you want to make sure that you're safe, your clients are safe, making your clients feel really good, wondering like, gosh, are we going to have any business? So that was the, March, April. And then of course, record low interest rates, and 150 people moving to Austin every day. That did not stop. And then honestly, now we're seeing even more people moving to Austin temporarily or permanently, because they now can, for instance, we have lots of people moving from Silicon Valley who are coming here because they know they don't have to go back to work in person. I helped a friend rent his house, and we rented it for about $4,000. And someone from Silicon Valley who was paying $13,500 a month in rent rented it.
Wow. Holy cow.
So that just tells you kind of the cost of living. And so all this work from home stuff is just shaking people up in terms of the flexibility of where they can live. And people are leaving California in droves. And a lot of them are coming to Austin. So there's definitely that. I mean, and then, so that's of course driving prices up. I think we're up about 12% year over year from last September price wise. We're up, we had an amazing, we have an amazing November. I've got 40 houses pending, which I've never had in November. That's usually November is one of our slower months, as you guys know, just things slow down a little bit. So it's just crazy out there, and it's fueled by interest rates, and then this fear of prices even going up even more. So
yeah, we have some
lots of investors.
We have some economists that we do some work with, and their opinions have kind of settled on that the actual value of housing is like the psychological value that people have for housing has gone up, because it's everything for us. It's where you live, it's where you work, it's your gym, it's your bar, it's your social, it's all happening there. And that because of the psychological value, that actually support, people go, oh, it's a bubble. It's like, actually, maybe not, because
it's not,
we value the homes.
Yeah. Well, I know we have, anything with a pool has gone like that in Austin. Anything with two offices has gone like that. That division, the home repair and remodeling division of our business has just done unbelievably well this year, because people are remodeling and redoing their houses. So that was, good timing. We launched that last year. And yeah, and I know I personally, even though it's weird, even though I'm in real estate, I was always kind of like out and about. I'm not really a homebody. I'm just like out doing things. And I've really grown to really appreciate my home, and I can see why
Mm,
people feel it's a sanctuary. So that's been a good outcome for me of the pandemic, is just really truly understanding why some people feel like their house is everything to them.
yeah.
Well, talk to us about about listings, because everyone we talk to, brokers nationally and some of the other top teams, that's the challenge. Is that
Mhm.
people are saying we've got enormous buyer demand and demand that
Mhm.
we had listings, we were listing light at entering this. But how are you guys doing anything different to take listings, or did you get more aggressive with it, or are people coming to you because they want to sell and take it? I mean, what's happening on the listings?
Yeah, well, we definitely need more listings like everybody else, because if you think about it, we've got 150 people moving to Austin every day, and only 50 are leaving. So it's not hard to do the math there. And
Yeah.
new construction isn't making up the shortage. So it's
Yeah.
really tough on our buyer agents right now. They're putting 6, 7 offers before their clients get a home. And so we're just doing tons and tons and tons of expectation setting. And then on the listing side, yeah, we're just doing whatever we can, we're to help our buyers. So we'll send out letters to a neighborhood just saying like, hey, we've got a buyer. If you've ever thought about listing your home, we can pull lists of non-owner occupied homes, and
Mm,
send letters and call and things like that. And then I think the main thing that's helped us, Jack, though, is having a really good relationship with our database. And I think that's played out in almost every industry, real estate included. I know, like, I look at the restaurants that I have a relationship with, either on social media or I'm on their email list,
Mhm.
and those are the ones who've reached out to me. They've sort of reconnected. They've gotten my help. I've gone, if I'm going to go to a restaurant, I'm going to go to one of these restaurants that I have a relationship with. And so we're about 86% business by referral.
Wow.
mm,
And that's just continued through the pandemic, and it's us providing value, saying, hey, here's what's going on, here's what you need to know. We're your local economist of choice. If you're interested in real estate investing, we can help. If it's not here, if it's somewhere else, anything you need to know, you need repairs on your house, we can help. Just we can help, we can help, we can help, we can help. And we've just doubled down on that. Actually, we've kind of doubled down on our database, and that's served us very well.
Mhm. That's great.
that's
Well, that's
amazing.
confirms the maxim that the basics function well
Yeah.
under almost all circumstances. It's the right thing. Like if
Yeah.
you
Well,
that's the database, that's it.
I just tell people we do it by the book, it's
I
not
know.
hard.
I know. That book is the Bible, I swear. I still
Yeah.
have it in my closet right there. I look at it.
I've got the old ugly version.
I do too. That's funny. We
Yeah.
have the same one.
I think I've
Um,
got the one that's we spiral bound them.
Oh, you
oh,
got a
right.
spot. Well, aren't you
That's
cool,
the first.
Jack?
You can flip it open, leave it open.
Oh, that you can write it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the lasting changes that you think that you will continue after COVID? And maybe, what are your predictions for 2021? Anything you want to offer there?
Well, I think that some of the things that we were sort of doing before the pandemic, which is virtual consultations, we do about 30% of our business is relocation from other cities.
Mm.
So some of that's going to be full on. Everyone for the most part is very comfortable with Zoom now.
Yeah.
So we'll see more people buying their homes virtually, probably, if
Yeah.
they don't want to fly or whatever, or buying investment properties virtually. And we were already doing some of that, but that'll be full on. And then it's just nice to have options, I think, for your sellers. You can say to your seller, hey, do you want to have a regular open house where you'll probably get about 8 people come through? Or would you like to do a virtual open house where you'll probably get about 2,000 people watching? Or do you want to do both? You choose.
Yeah.
And so it's just about giving more choice. It's like all this new technology that's coming out, people say all kinds of things about it, but at the end of the day, I think it's all good because the consumer should have the most choice.
Mhm.
If you don't want to sell your house by putting it on the MLS and not using a realtor, well, then sure, there are people who are willing to pay for, they won't make as much money, right? But
Right.
I think consumer choice is a great thing, and that's just where the market always goes. So we're not going to stop it.
Right. That's such a
Yeah.
good point because consumers want what they want and
Mhm.
they'll get it or someone will give it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the history of innovation in this industry specifically, because we study that, is that that's what's been happening in this industry. Is we're not people are afraid of like, oh, this next thing is going to come and the industry's going to blow up and it'll be replaced by robots or whatever thing they have. But actually, what's happened is it's just created more consumer choice and more agent choice. It's like, oh, as an agent today, you have more choices of business models that you could work under in
Yeah.
terms of your brokerage model or your franchise than we've ever had, and none of them have gone away. They've just created, like, there's just more stuff on the shelf now. If you want to work via flat fee, great, you got options there. If you want to work via traditional commission, you've got that. If you work with cap, you got that. So so I think it's very wise what you're saying, that this is
I agree with you. And I think it's just good for the industry. And as agents, if we want to keep our jobs, we have to continue to get better and better at it. We work in an industry where the barrier to entry is so low. We have so many people who are inexperienced. And so those of us that have been in the business for a while, we need to really think of ourselves as business owners. We need to think of ourselves as fiduciaries. If we've got agents in our brokerage, we need to be teaching them about wealth building. We need to be giving them the tools to build their own wealth. We need to be giving them the tools to help their clients build wealth. And, I know I sit down with one of my clients and have coffee with them, and it's like, they could have sat down with their financial advisor and paid their financial advisor $1,000 to sit down and do that. And nobody's ever going to take that away from us.
Yeah, because it's that trust in the relationship and the fact that you have value to offer them, and and for your relationship, it works when they call you back and say, hey, I am interested in investing in property, or whatever it is that their needs are. So that's a great offer to have that offer. Do you I'm sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I had a follow on to that, which is I know you have a lot of people that you see through the Keller Williams network, and you've created a following. What are the things that you're seeing through that network? What questions are people asking? Where do you see that they need, where do real estate agents need help? Where do people starting teams need help? What are the sorts of questions that they've had or brought to you through the podcast you're doing and those pieces? I'm just curious as to your listening.
Yeah, well, I think it just all goes back to leverage, and it's leveraging your time and leveraging your money. Mm-hmm. We all are the same in that we all have 24 hours in the day. I have the same amount of time in my day as Warren Buffett or Gary Keller or anybody else. And so how are you using your time and really thinking about your time as a finite resource? Mm-hmm. And most agents don't think of it that way. They really don't. They never even stop to think about like, hey, what's my dollar per hour?
Right.
So just really getting clear on what your dollar per hour is, making your not to-do list, right? All the things. If your dollar per hour is $50 an hour, then you can pay someone $13 an hour to go put a sign in the yard. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
It's fundamentals. That's fundamentals. So it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's basic, but I don't think most people get it. And it's weird because it's like most other industries, they do that. If I walked into a doctor's office and my doctor was behind that little desk and handed me a clipboard with a pen on it,
it'd be weird.
I'm like, what a waste of your time, man. Or if he took me back and weighed me. I mean, there's a reason he comes in for the, it's like you see 3 people pretty much before you see the doctor. That's how it should be in real estate, and I think people are so attached to their ego, right? They think like, well, I am the only one that can put this sign in the yard this way, just the perfect way that I do it, or they have control issues or whatever. And that's all ego. People are attached to your standards. They're not attached to you.
That is so true. That's such good advice too, because I remember, I think it might've been Gary who used to say, if you don't have an admin, then you are the admin, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, we don't always think through that full thing. And of course the doctor isn't giving us the sign-in sheet, right? But sometimes we have to stop and reflect on, oh yeah, I really shouldn't be doing this. And then how do I really say what the conditions of satisfaction are so that I can train someone to be able to do it? And generally speaking, if you find that right person, they can do it better than you anyway, because we're not good at that to start with. But,
Exactly.
you know, in the absence of the standard and the training and all of that, we just want to revert back to holding on to it because that's kind of the easy way to
It's
do it.
easy. Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
I tell people I have fired myself from every single job at my company. You know, I fired myself from transaction coordination. I fired myself from putting signs in the yard. I fired myself from showing property. I fired myself from being a buyer agent. I fired myself from running the office. I fired myself from the listing side of the business. And I hired people who were better at it and enjoyed it more than I did.
That's
And no
great.
complaints so far, you know?
Yeah, it seems to be working out great. And, you know, and you're happy, they're happy, and it's, you know, it's all
Yeah,
good.
everybody's
So,
on the right seat on the bus.
right.
You know? Yeah. I mean, there are
Right.
people who wake up every day and want to organize your database. Right?
Yes, please.
We
That
love
sounds
those.
wonderful.
We love those people.
Of
They,
course.
That.
they're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's
I
how
say
they're,
that.
that's how they're hardwired. You know, I'm
Yep.
terrible at it.
So true. Well, we'd love to know some final words of wisdom that you might want to share with our audience. You know, we have brokers on the call, and anything that you would love to share that we.
I think she shared a lot of words of wisdom
Yeah,
already.
a lot more words of wisdom.
Is there anything
I guess
would-
final words of
Yes,
wisdom.
any parting thoughts or anything with before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really just this idea of thinking bigger and running towards your passion. You know, I'm very clear about what my mission is. My mission is to empower and inspire big thinking leaders to create lives of abundance. That is why I said yes to this interview, because I knew who I would be speaking to today. And if you don't take the time to stop and think about why God put you on this planet, you're just going to continue to go and blow and go and blow and go and blow and go. And then you're going to wake up one day and you're like filled with regret, right? So take some time, figure out why you're here on this planet. There's a reason for it, and run towards your mission, learn how to leverage your time and your money. And then that's where true joy and personal satisfaction comes from. So
Oof.
Love it.
Wow, you stuck the landing. So good.
Yay. Bam.
So good. Yeah. So, well, it's just been a
So great to see you.
tremendous pleasure
yeah,
to have you here. We really appreciate you taking the time for us. Do tell Jay thank you for him. The things he's doing.
I will. Yeah. And we all need to catch up and have coffee when we
would
can.
We do.
Yeah. When we were allowed to do that. we
I
should.
know.
Should.
Yeah. I'd love that.
But thank you so much again, and we look forward to doing more of this, hopefully in person.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for having me, guys.
awesome.
Yeah. Good to
Great.
see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.